Anyone who says I don't like board games because I really haven't found one I like, or that there's not a board game out there that's for me, they're all wrong. There's a genre of board game for literally anything you can think of. For Elon Musk, you have Terraforming Mars. For people who enjoy pegging, you have Peggle. And for people who really like stained glass, you have Azul, Stained Glass of Sintra, and Sagrada. This is the predecessor to Azul, in that Sagrada came out actually just 5 months before the first Azul did. In Sagrada, you draft pieces from the center to make your art. And in Azul, you draft pieces from the center to create your art. Wait a minute. Yep, that's right. I'm calling Next Move Games out. Azul has a total of 47 awards and nominations, and Sagrada only got 12. In my opinion, Sagrada paved the way for Azul, and I didn't even hear about Sagrada until I played Stained Glass of Sintra, which is the second Azul game. And just to point it out, there are a billion similarities between these two games. After practically stealing the mechanics from Sagrada, they said, fuck it, theme 2, and they decided to make Stained Glass of Sintra. If you haven't checked out the Azul and the Azul Stained Glass videos, I recommend that you go do that now. If you already have and you want a refresher, the main difference between Azul and Azul Stained Glass of Sintra is that the base Azul is actually good. I play Azul a lot. I wouldn't recommend Stained Glass of Sintra. I gave Azul a 7. And I gave Azul Stained Glass of Sintra a solid 5. Expect some comparisons, but also be warned. If you watch my Roman roll review, you know how I feel about dice rolling games, and this is one of those. Anyways, let's just get into the lore of this game because honestly I love it. So the name might sound familiar to you. I mentioned it in my Azul Stained Glass review. Sagrada is based off of a church with the same name in Barcelona. This church is infamous for both never being completed and not knowing what the hell it wants to be. Even though construction began in 1882, it's still not completed. I actually visited while it was still under construction in 2009. So the church isn't finished, and the King of Spain commissioned you to make a stained glass window for the church. Sound familiar? This is kind of like when the Portuguese king, Lin-Manuel Miranda I, commissioned you to make a fresco for the palace. Doesn't sound familiar enough? Well, what about the sequel to Azul, where the same king of Portugal asked you to make a stained glass window for the church of the palace? Moving on. So maybe the lore was the only similarity between the two games. I hear you saying, defending your favorite board game that you bought from Target. Well, you'd be wrong. The gameplay mechanics are almost entirely the same. Like I mentioned earlier, you're just drafting dice from the center, and you use that to build your window and earn points. Where Sagrada really beats Azul is actually the community aspect of the game. What I mean by this is that there's so much more to interact with, in terms of the board and the other players. Sure, sometimes it comes down to the grime fest that Azul does, where you're just picking pieces not because you need them, but because someone else needs them and you don't want them to have them. But most of the interactive mechanics actually just benefit you more than they would harm other people. The idea that there are interactive mechanics in a game as simple as this that are to your benefit rather to everybody else's detriment is very unique. And it's super rare in a game like this. Again, with most games of this difficulty level, it's usually just screwing people over so that you can do the one simple thing you have to get through. But this game has a little bit more to it. So one person rolls the dice and everyone gets their turn to select which ones they want from the center in a way that's pretty refreshing and not punishing like Azul's -1 piece. There are private objective cards that revolve around specific colors that you want to go for, or public objective cards that shape the way that you lay out your glass. There are also favors you can call in, and the price of those varies on how many people have already done that favor. The amount of favor tokens that you get for this too is also based on the difficulty of the board that you're given, which I will point out is extremely accurate and well balanced, and it really didn't need to be, but they did it anyways. So the game ends after 10 rounds, which you keep track of by putting all of the leftover undrafted pieces on the indicators. The really sick thing about this game is that there are favors that interact with the tracker, like this one, that lets you swap out any die in the pile with any one on the tracker. Honestly, this is my favorite favor. I think it's sick. Again, they didn't need to add a mechanic like this, but they did it anyways. There are honestly super ballsy favors too, like re-rolling one colored die, and you have to take whatever it is. Even if it's one you don't want to use, even if it's one that you can't use, you have to take it. So let's move on to the piece inspection. The box itself is actually super sick and extremely well made. which I can't say for most board games. Usually you spin this really dumb roulette wheel of, is the art nice? Does it actually hold all the pieces in place? Or am I going to be able to close this box again? And sometimes you get all three. There are a fuck ton of pieces in here. One huge complaint I actually have about this game is that there wasn't an area to roll your dice into. Oceans, which is a game that branches off of the Evolution line of games, which I'm sure I'm going to get to at some point, has this little tray that you can use. But for Sagrada, I had to use a bowl that I use to eat food out of to make sure I don't lose any of the 90 dice that are in this. I will mention that the publisher, Floodgate Games, made a dice rolling tray, but this was promo only and you can't really get them anymore. I would have loved for something like this especially to come standard, especially when they made expansions. So yeah, my biggest complaint is dice going fucking everywhere, especially when you have the round counter being the leftover dice. Sometimes you roll it down there, you don't know what's what, and honestly I had to fuck it up quite a couple of times before I finally settled on just using a bowl. For reference though, Azul has 100 pieces, but at least the Azul chips are like starbursts that don't roll all over the place. You're not supposed to be rolling those chips. This is something that these kind of just have to go everywhere, so having a place to roll them into would have been a lot nicer. I mean, like, hell, even Yahtzee has it. Speaking of odd looking pieces, let's look at the favor tokens again. Why in the name of fuck would you make fish tank rocks a board game piece? I get it, right? Like, lore wise, it's supposed to be clear glass so that you can use a favor and stain it to be whatever you want it to be. Sure. Right? I just made that up on the spot, but it makes sense, doesn't it? You believe me. But come on, right? Why do board game publishers have to make pieces that I just want to put in my fucking mouth? One more thing is that the scoreboard is on the back of the round counter. Considering that you only need to count score at the very end, this isn't that egregious. You'll never need both sides at the same time. But it would have been nice to have a separate board, especially since this board only caps out at 50 points when most games we play are in the 60 point wise. I just end up using my phone calculator every time. I mean, you can see it here. I haven't even taken out the 50 tokens because I can just keep score manually. Okay, now on to the ratings. To compare things to Azul again, you know, sometimes in that game it's just super simple, the gameplay is extremely linear, and it just becomes happy baby fun time for the person that happens to pick up the right tokens. Sagrada is about the same difficulty as Stained Glass. The only difficulty really comes from knowing the restrictions on when and where you can put dice, and how to use the objectives and the favors efficiently. That being said, I'm giving this game a very light 2 out of 5 difficulty. When a game can only be 8 minutes long, you know it really can't be that complicated, right? This game has a really nice balance in that I think that anybody can play it. This game is actually so quick and not complicated that I'm going to be posting a second video, which should be up right now, showing you guys a quick run through of this game that I'm doing with Jess. You probably won't be able to glean all of the rules from this video, but you can get an idea to see if the game is really for you. And if you want to learn how to play it in an easier way than just reading, the publisher has a how-to video on their website, and Watch It Played has a really good how-to video as well. So those will both be in the link in the description as well. Now, onto a rating. One thing I didn't mention that we really need to talk about is how much I hate dice rolling games. If you watch the Roman Roll review, you know that I hate dice rolling. The only game that I'm ever going to give a good review to that has dice rolling mechanics that are that pivotal is going to be Claustrophobia, which I hope somebody commissions me for soon because that game is wild and I could honestly just make a video on why the dice rolling mechanics in that game are so good. That being said, I gotta add this to my list of dice games that I actually like.
Then check this out. Ready now?
The main difference is that the dice in Sagrada are no more than just a vehicle for the actual objective of the game, which is filling in your window. The part that makes it great is that they didn't actually have to do it with dice. Just change the way you make the window and boom, you have no need for categorizing things by random numbers on a dice. Unlike Roman Roll and other dice rolling games, you don't 100% need the dice to play. Some role-playing board games make you roll for stats, which is insanely unbalanced. I mean, if you're trying to play a bard so you can support, the last thing you really need is max health and strength, huh? Or if you're running a paladin, you don't really need stealth. Enough about that though, let's wrap this review up. Pog alert. Pog alert. Let it be known that this game both shits and fucks. I gave Azul a 7, I gave Stained Glass a 5, I'm giving Sagrada a 7.5 out of 10. I really enjoyed this game. I'm putting it in the tier just below Sight. I was genuinely surprised that this game slapped so hard. For $30, I was really impressed. Not only did I only find out about this game because I was doing the Azul Stained Glass review, which again was the sequel to the game that copied this game. It's absolutely wild that this gem of a game got done so dirty by Azul's publisher and their marketing team. Diamond in the rough, for sure. Or, you know, whatever the equivalent of a 7.5 is in precious stones. What do I look like, some gem collector? You're probably like, I think that Octavian's forgetting something. You probably thought I forgot about the drink pairing, huh? So for Sagrada, the drink pairing that I'm recommending is church wine. Boo. Boo. Hiss boo. Get off the stage. Oh, come on. I went the entire video without making a religious joke for a board game that's based on a church. I didn't make a single Peggle joke about the clergy. And honestly, you guys are lucky. SMH my head. You guys don't deserve a drink pairing for this one.
But wait, there's more.
Thank you to all my contributors on Ko-fi. This really took off a lot better than I thought it would. Looks like you guys don't really like giving your money to Jeffy B either. Don't let him hear that though. Well, with how well the Ko-fi did, we went ahead and already upgraded to Ko-fi Gold. That means that I can provide you with Ko-fi exclusive content. The page is more customizable, and there are some really cool features like auto-renewing subs for Ko-fi. You just gotta check it out. Ko-fi doesn't take a fee, so creators are paid directly and instantly through PayPal. I cannot recommend that you visit the site and follow the account more. So, I actually leaked to Ko-fi earlier this week what the board game for this week was going to be. You can also commission me for whatever board game you want me to review. Not sure if I own it? Check the Board Game Geek account link in the description that I made. It has a link to all of the games that I have access to. It's also on the Ko-fi website if you click commission, so there's no way you can miss it. The scores and review URLs for videos that I've already done are available on that website as well. The links to all this stuff will be in the description. This video wouldn't be possible without patrons like these wonderful people. We got Sizzy, Aurora, TheLoweGaming, Crumplehat, Jesterful, Benzene, Aneu, Nat, Kara, and my mom. Shoutouts to Sizzy, Aurora, Crump, and Lols977, and my mother for all commissioning to do their own reviews. Want to be next in line? Or reserve your spot today on the commissions page on the Ko-fi. Also, make sure you check out the video of Jess and I playing Sagrada so you can see whether or not you like. Again, all the links are going to be in the description, and there will be a playlist of all of the other board game reviews that I've done at the end of this video for you to check out if you've missed any or if you want to revisit your favorites. Thanks, and I'll see you guys in the next one.